extensions, which a lot of immigrants to US, especially including US and including Indians and technology professionals, especially go through as part of their life journey or as part of their professional sort of movement into the US, growth into the US. So I'm very glad, Min-Seok, you're presenting this. And to introduce Min-Seok to everyone, I mean, he's a great friend. He's also from, Michigan, where I went to school, although I don't think we overlapped much there, Min-Seok. But
no.
So he's currently an associate professor of MIS and Milton Stauffer Research Fellow at the Fox School of Business, Temple University. He is very active in research. He's a senior editor of JIS and associate editor at MIS Quarterly. And both of those are well-known journals in our field. His research is very interesting, and he studies strategic management of IT in the public sector, technology-enabled public policy, and he has published in all the big journals, including Management Science, MIS Quarterly, ISR. Also received a AIS Best Information System Publication Award, Best Published Paper Award from ISR, Outstanding Reviewer Award. So he's done everything, Reviewer Award at MIS Quarterly. So he's done everything. And so welcome, Min-Seok, to the IIMA and CDT webinar. We're very glad you are taking time to present here. And I'm looking forward to hearing you. And I'm pretty sure all our participants as well. So over to you, Min-Seok.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing you.
Yeah. Thank you, Pankaj, for a very kind introduction. I appreciate it very much. So yeah, Pankaj is a good friend of mine, and I'm so happy to be here with his invitation. I'm very honored. Can you guys hear me well? By the way, it sounds okay?
Narendra, is it going through okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So today I'm going to introduce one of my research paper with my previous doctoral students. It is about the immigration policy here in the US. It's about STEM OPT extension. This is a joint work with Sue Guo, currently at UNC, University of North Carolina, Charlotte, but she's a graduate of Temple University, and also with Jin Gong at Ohio University. So when I'm presenting this paper, I often ask this question to, so for example, like when I'm presenting this one to school, at a school here in the US, I ask audience this question when there are many immigrants. I suppose most of attendees here are from India, right? But I can ask this question to Pankaj, right? So Pankaj, you graduated from Michigan State, and your first job was at Arkansas.
Right.
So why did you find a job in the US right after graduation?
That's an interesting question. So I think you're aware that we start the PhD there, and we start working on a lot of projects as part of the PhD.
Right.
And it just seemed that it fit very naturally into that process. One, so there is people you're working with are very close to you. So that is I think one big reason. But also because I think the way at least US universities emphasized research, especially at that time, I don't think many other places in the world did that. And so the work, if you may think of it as affordances for work, what all I could do, or what are the things that were available to enable me to do the work I was doing, I thought were the greatest at that time, at least in US. I think that
so you want to find better opportunities here in the US, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why many immigrants are, move from one country to another, right? To find the better opportunities for more there are opportunities that provides more benefits, more salaries, right? At the same time, employers here in the US, are hiring immigrants because immigrants are providing superior skill, immigrants are more talented, often than the domestic counterparts. So the way we will describe about immigration is it's a global labor market matching. So there is a supply of high-skilled workers, high-skilled professionals like IT professionals from more developing countries like India or China or Korea. And there are employment opportunities. The employers are looking for high-skilled professionals in from developing countries, and they are in like a developed country in the US, Canada, or European countries. So what we are seeing in the past couple of decades is there is a global market, global competition for high-skilled workers. So many countries like Australia, Canada, UK, and other developed countries, they provide incentives. They have programs that attract high-skilled foreign workers to their countries to fill out their skill gaps. There are many skills, many places where they need more workers. They need more high-skilled workers, and that's the case as in the low-skilled immigrations too. There are many low-skilled immigrants from developing countries, and developed countries are also looking for workers who can fill the gap in the low-skilled labor market too. So there is a global competition going on to attract high-skilled workers throughout the U.S., throughout the world. But if you are familiar with the U.S. news or U.S. politics, there has been some controversy in terms of immigration policies, the past administration. So the past administration was trying to restrict the number of H-1B visa that many immigrants are using, like many Indian programmers or other immigrants are using to find a job here in the US. That was a controversial policy proposal. And also the Trump administration was trying to restrict the number of the OPT program for foreign students, like Indian students here in the US, who are trying to get a job here in the US. So the challenge in the immigration policy and the challenge in immigration research is that it is often driven by the politics, often driven by ideology. Liberal conservatives have a different perspective, and it doesn't really driven by academic research. It doesn't really driven by evidence. Okay, so in the one side of the politics, we have group of politicians who advances immigration. They are saying the immigrants make America great. It provides jobs, it pay for taxes. So these sectoral politics, wants to have more policies that attract immigrants. But on the other side, more of the conservative side, they are critical of immigration. They're claiming that immigrants are taking away of jobs from the domestic workers. They are replacing domestic workers. So the reason we are doing this research is that there should be some more academic evidence, and the immigration policies should be driven by more of the academic evidence, concrete evidence, not necessarily by politics or ideology or what we believe in. So one of the pathway for high-skilled workers, high-skilled foreign workers from India or other countries, in the US market is through education. So we have many Indian students or Chinese students or other Korean students in the US schools, like a Temple or Michigan State. They are coming to the US with the F1 student visa. And what they can do after graduation is they can apply for optical practical training. By the way, this is a process that Pankaj went through. This is the process that I went through many years ago. So they can apply for optional practical training, in which that they can stay additional 1 year to find a job or get the additional training after graduation. And if when they get a full-time job offer, permanent job offer, they can apply for H-1B employment visa up to that is good up to 60 years. And after that, they can apply for a permanent residence card or green card. I'm at this stage right now. I have a green card. I have a permanent residency here in the U.S. And eventually they can apply for U.S. citizenship. The policy change that we are looking at here is this. So this is a previous policy. So every F1 visa student graduate can apply for 1 year additional stay to find a job or to get a training. But in 2008 and 2016, these 12-month period have extended to 17 months and 24 months in 2008 and 2016 for STEM majors, science, technology, and engineering math major. So those who get a degree in STEM, like electrical engineering, mathematics, or computer science, they can apply for extension in this OPT training period, which gives them more time and more flexibility, more opportunity to find a job, more permanent job with the H-1B visa here in the US. So this is what we are looking at. So what kind of, what effect does this extension from 12 months to 24 months here in 2016, what kind of effect does this have on the domestic US labor market? What we are saying in terms of this OPT extension is that this policy has increased the supply of high-skilled foreign workers. So as you can see in this graph, we've seen a big increase in the number of foreign students in STEM and non-STEM degrees, and we can see there is a huge increase in STEM graduates here in the US. And the reason is that it increases the chance of the prospective foreign workers like from India or China to find a more permanent employment opportunity here in the US. Let's say that you have 12 months after your graduation to find a job, or you have 2 years to find a job here in the US. You can imagine that you have more flexibility. You can have more advantage in finding better job, more permanent job. You know, if you have a longer time to be allowed to stay in the US, and that attracts more foreign students to come to the US schools. So what it means that, so let's say there's Indian students who could go to Canadian school, who go to European school, but this policy change made it attractive for these Indian students or other students to find to start their study in US schools. Okay, so we want to look at the impact of these changes, you know, and how this policy changes affect the domestic US labor market. So any questions so far? Anyone?
I think we are good.
Okay,
So
so
just, Min-Seok, maybe I can ask a clarification. So this red line would indicate the number of people who, so when it goes between first and second extension, the red line is going up and the blue line is almost flat.
yeah.
Is that indicating that, so I'm trying to understand the reason for this increase, for example. Is it more and more people seeking second step OPD extension, you're saying? Approvals?
No. This is the number of foreign graduates from U.S. schools. So
okay.
So this is a policy change. It's not about one second. So
that
this
24
is a
year,
number of
24, yeah.
Yeah, this is number of students in thousands.
Sure.
This should be like a 200,000.
Sure.
And we're looking at the number of students graduating from number of foreign students graduating from U.S. schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that number was increasing in 2014 for STEM. That's the increase, is that more students were taking STEM.
Yeah.
In 2004, around 2014. And it could be, and I think you would probably say that this is because of the OPT extension policy. I don't know, maybe that's what you're kind of leading to.
Well, so yeah, you're right that there might be other reasons for these increase, but we would say this is one of the reasons for number of STEM graduates from foreign countries in the US to go up. You know, we see the difference between STEM increase in STEM graduates and non-STEM graduates, and we are saying that, I mean, this is not the
causal, this is not
part of the focus of paper. We are not looking at the number of, for instance, that's not focused, but this is just the one of the evidence that says that the effect of OPT extension is increasing the supply of high-skilled foreign workers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we want to look at what happens after we attract more foreign students in STEM versus non-STEM.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other question? Okay, so basically our research model is we want to look at the policy effect of this policy change, the STEM OPT extension, on the employment of domestic workers in the US. We look at the number of workers and the wages of workers. We also look at want to look at the differences between IT versus non-IT STEM. I mean, this is IS research, so we have to show something about the information technology, right? So we want to see how these policy changes have a different effect on IT occupations versus non-IT STEM occupations like biochemical or like electrical engineering. Okay, so I'm going to explain more about that, in just a minute. So we are based upon the two different literature, labor and econ literature, or we have also large body of literature on the characteristics of IT labor. We don't see a lot of papers in labor econ that especially look at the especially looking at the IT occupation. We also trying to fill the gap in IS literature on the effect of immigration policy. Sunil Mitas has done some work in terms of the H-1B visa policy. We are looking at different one, which is STEM OPT extension. So there are in terms of theory, we can envision two different effects of the high-skilled foreign workers on domestic employment. So kind of a straightforward argument would be that the high-skilled foreign workers substitute domestic workers. So if there are more high-skilled workers in the developed countries, it intensifies the labor market competition. Usually the high-skilled workers wage levels are lower for high-skilled workers, so that basically cannibalize domestic employment. So that's what the critics on immigration argues. It takes away jobs from domestic workers. But there are arguments that says it has actually complementary effects in a way that more high-skilled workers actually increase employment over domestic workers, in a way that high-skilled foreign workers can lessen the shortage in certain sectors like information technology. It can facilitate innovation, and it can facilitate entrepreneurship by developing new technology or creating new forms. And these high-skilled workers can improve farm productivity, and that eventually expand the overall size of employment. So that's the argument that supports more immigration, basically. And then we want to look at the difference between IT versus non-IT STEM, okay? So in our classroom, in IS research, we are saying that the IT, information technologies, is a general purpose technology that can be used in virtually all industries. So think of the difference between programmers versus biochemists, okay? Programmers, computer science graduates or IT workers can find a job pretty much any industry, like, could go to Amazon, could go to Walmart, could go to finance industries. It's valuable to virtually all industries. But if you are a biochemist, there's certain number of sectors that you can get a job. Okay, so we see the difference between these two different STEM fields. So in our research, in IS research, we're saying that the IT can streamline business processes. It can be enabler of strategies in big different industries. And these limited IT graduates can bring up to date knowledge and skills to the firms in all industries. And over the past few decades, we are seeing the digitization of product and services in all range of industries. So like Internet of Things, pretty much these days, most of the product or services in any industries come with technology, come with the information technologies, like you can imagine like cars or like robots or other products. So we can say that the IT skills are key drivers in firms' innovation in many different industries. And IT skills, IT professionals can play a key role in entrepreneurships in different industries. If you're looking at the Silicon Valley, I mean, this is what I am amazed, by the way. So we are seeing many Indian CEOs in Silicon Valley or across the industries. That's because the immigrants play a key role in the technology development, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So what we're saying is that if there is a complementary effect from OPT extension, that effect should be stronger, higher in IT occupation than in other STEM occupation. Yes, Pankaj.
So the argument of greater the argument that this would be greater in specialized versus generic versus specialized. I'm still trying to kind of get my head around that idea that so it will be complementing a more wide range of occupations, you are saying, or at what level are we examining this complementary effect? Let me put it this way.
So basically we are complementary between foreign workers and domestic workers. So
in any
when we are
specific
saying,
industry, in any
yeah,
specific
specific
industry.
occupation, within
Okay.
occupation. So
Okay.
where we are arguing is that the more IT workers coming in here in the domestic market, and that could improve farm productivity, that could augment the competitiveness. It can they can help firms to do more innovation. It can create more firms, and that in turn increase the size of pie. Basically, that can by increasing size of pie, it can attract more domestic workers in the same occupation in information technology. So that's
this level of analysis is actually the occupation, is it?
occupations. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so for different occupations, there will be more complementary effects than substitutive, because IT is a general purpose and it applies to many different occupations. Is that sort of the argument? Right?
Different industries.
Industries, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are saying that well, so this complementary effect could happen in different other STEM occupations too, like electrical engineering or biochemist. But what we are saying is that because of the difference between IT versus non-IT STEM occupation, the complementary effect within the occupation should be stronger within IT occupation than within other STEM occupations.
So this is to say that the complementarities of IT within the IT industry are going to be much more dominant than, and you assume that any other STEMs will have the complementarities within industry, but those are not as dominant.
No. Yeah.
I think what probably threw me off is because I think the idea that IT can go across industries. So you're thinking of cross-industry complementarities of IT, let's say with the biochemistry, industry. So does it complement other, industries, or does it complement the? So there is one is the idea of IT as a doing the complementary effect, or the other is an actor where it provides that complementary effect. And so I think those are two different things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess you're asking effect of IT occupations on different occupations, right? We actually have some evidence on that. So I will show that in later this slide.
Okay.
How about that? Yeah. So we do have actually some result that actually says that it increased non-STEM occupations too. Non-STEM occupation employment too. So I will show something later the slides. Yeah. Any other question? Comments? Okay. Then let me talk about the empirical research setting. So this is changes in OPT policies since 2008 until March 2016. So as you can see, we are looking at the this policy change. We're looking at how this policy change in 2008 and 16 affects the domestic employment. By the way, this treatment is on the degrees, but our unit of analysis is occupations. So with that, we are using the so there is some cross or matching between degrees and occupations. We use this matching between degrees and occupation. And we can do that because in OPT policy, if you want to get an extension after 12 months, you have to be employed in occupation directly related to your degree. So let's say you get the computer science degree, for example, and you want to get an extension in OPT policy, you have to be employed in the computer science related occupations. So that's how we are using occupation as a unit of analysis. So this is an example of matching from majors to occupation. So our unit of analysis, like I said, is occupation and metropolitan area. We use a metropolitan area to see some regional heterogeneity too. And we are using several different data sources from U.S. Census, American Community Survey, and the Department of Homeland Security in the U.S. And these are the key variables. So different variables are number of all workers and number of domestic workers here in the U.S. who are employed in each occupation in each metropolitan area. So the difference between domestic workers and foreign workers is, so that's the definition of the US Census, by the way. And US Census defines domestic workers as those who are born with a US citizenship, so who are born here in the US. So these are domestic workers. And if we look at the average of the all workers and domestic worker, average wage of domestic workers, and we use typical DID with the treatment variable. OPT extension variable is one for STEM occupations that are affected, that are subject to the OPT extensions. And we use the IT occupation dummy to see the difference between IT occupation versus non-IT STEM occupations. And we use several different control variables. I will explain some of the control variables later. And this is a typical difference and differences model. The different variables are the number of domestic workers or their average wage of occupation in each occupation, in each MSA, in each year. And this is a treatment variable. And we use the interaction of OPT extension and IT occupations to see the difference between IT occupation versus non-IT STEM occupations. And we use several fixed effect and the specific linear time trend to control for the unobserved heterogeneities. Any questions so far? Do you have any question? Yes, Pankaj.
I have one question. So I'm trying to figure out this. So there is IT occupations, and that is defined. It is one of those 140 majors, or how do you define an IT occupation?
IT occupations. So these are the list of the IT occupations.
And is there a link of these with the 140 majors that you were talking about?
Yeah.
So I think that 140 majors thing that you have.
Yeah. So these 100 and 140 majors are matched to STEM occupations.
Yeah.
Okay. And
that's
one of
broadly,
the majors.
Yeah, that's broadly STEM. Okay.
Yeah, broadly STEM. And one of the majors, one of the degree is this computer and information sciences, and then can be matched to these IT occupations. So IT occupations, there are many different IT occupations, like programmers, or like a database managers, or architect, or research, computer science research scientist. So we are covering all these different IT occupations. And by the way, we're going to look at the differences within IT occupations too.
Okay. So
I will show something later.
Sure.
Because all these IT occupations are not same. They are doing different roles, and we are actually looking at the heterogeneity in the IT occupations too. So I will show something later.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question from the audience?
So this one says that the number of workers, which is
Domestic workers.
Total hash of domestic workers
Uh-huh.
or their wages
And wages, yeah.
actually are a function which is a positive function of OPT extension. That's the
Could be positive, could be negative.
And yeah, I mean, right. So you're hypothesizing as a positive, but it could be negative. And you're saying that effect is likely to be greater for IT occupations.
So if that's the truth, so we are looking at if this is going to be positive and this is going to be positive too.
Right.
So that's going to show, this is going to show the difference between IT occupation versus non-IT STEM.
I think there is one question from someone who says, clarification question, dynamic DID as OPT was adopted at different years. Is that correct? Are you using a dynamic as OPT was adopted at different years?
Yeah, that's true. So 1 second. So yeah, so there are different majors who are treated in different times. So yeah, you could say it's a dynamic DID. So there are additional 40 degrees right here, additional 40 degrees who are treated in 2016, not hundreds. And we are using that. Yeah, we are looking at both this 100 majors and 140 majors.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks so much. So 1 second. Let me show some results, and we can have more discussions too. So these are the results. So we can see that we can see from here, we are seeing that the increase in the number of workers in STEM occupations, and that effect is stronger in when we look at the interaction of the OPT extension and IT occupation, we're seeing that this effect is stronger, right? And so, I should say we're seeing that OPT extension has increased the number of domestic IT workers by 7%. We're talking about domestic workers, so bring more IT workers from other countries actually increase the number of domestic IT workers here in the US. And this is results on wage. We are seeing that OPT extension has actually increased the wage of domestic IT workers too by about 3.4%, which is about $1,000 per year. So this shows that the step.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
So we are seeing that this OPT extension has also increased the wage level and much more so than in IT occupation. Okay, go ahead.
So the question then is it, so one is very simple. I hope it's inflation adjusted wages, is it? Or
yeah,
it is inflation adjusted. Then in terms of, so what you're saying almost is that and I'm sure you have the test later, so I'm just asking it, but
sure, yeah.
Ordinarily one would think that more workers are needed when the market is expanding. I mean, endogeneity, right? So reverse.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sure you have that. You're going to come to that. But before that, also let me ask. I mean, what is the underlying model you would say? Why, in general, would number of domestic workers increase in an industry? Right, so the foreign workers or the OPT extension, which is a sort of a representation of the number of people from outside, foreign workers coming in, is there an alternate mechanism? What would be ordinary, the reason why, let's say a country does not allow any foreign workers, or US were to say that no foreign workers whatsoever. Hypothetical case, we say 0 foreign workers, everybody has to be domestic. in that case, why would the domestic workers increase? The factors would be what? So one could be the growth of, the demand side largely, right? So if we say that the supply side factors are largely constant, which means no new universities, no thing. It is only when the demand for certain things increases does that increase. Is that a factor somehow in the equation, that there is a demand side increase which is propelling the enhancement of these domestic workers and probably the foreign workers as well? I mean, the IT industry worldwide is booming, and so more people are building software, and they're building more in US, they're building more in India, and so on.
Mhm. So I guess what you're asking is what are the confounders, right? What are the other factors that affects the relations between this OPT extension and the number of domestic workers? And there are tons of it, and that's true. There are other confounders that affects the supply of workers, demand of workers, and we are using several control variables and other approaches to account for that. And still, yes, you're right. There are other endogenous issues too. So how about I show what the analysis that we try to address all these issues.
Sure, excellent.
Yeah.
Look forward
to
that.
Yeah, so I mean, this is we are revising the paper for second round review at MI Scholarly. It was rejected at ISL before, and yeah, we heard tons of the comments about the indigeneity and other compounding issues. So yeah, so let me show what we tried. By the way, this is a DID. So we have we looking at the real-time model to see any pretreatment trends, and we didn't see any. So yeah, there are many indigeneity concerns. I'm happy to talk about these. So basically, STEM extension might have been instituted because of the expected increase in demand for STEM occupations. So, for example, IT occupations are included in STEM OPT extension because we need more foreign workers. There will be increase in demands for IT workers. So there is a selection issue. There is these indigenous issues. So we did several things. Let me show what we've done. So we come up with a control variable called the GDP occupation. So I'm not going to spend too much time in sharing all the details. So there is an annual GDP that provides a GDP level for each MSA and industry. So like a GDP level at the IT industry in Philadelphia, for example. And each industry, we have industry occupation matrix that shows the percentage of the employment in each occupation in each industry. So by combining these, by multiplying these two matrices, we could get the level of GDP for each occupation in each MSA. So that could serve as a proxy for time-varying MSA demand level. So this is a proxy for demand occupation demands. Okay, and we also use other control variables. Let me show. We also have Google Trends, search volume for occupation in each MSA. We also look at the number of H-1B applicants in each occupation and MSA to control for demand levels or the supply of foreign workers. Again, these are the control variables. It's not enough. And we did additional analysis, which is we use instrumental variable. So the instrumental variable that you are using is this. So business schools, as you know, are accredited by ACSD, right? The engineering school and science engineering schools are accredited by ABEP. Okay. This is like ASCSB, and ABET provides a list of the degrees based on their disciplinary definition. This program has been a long history since 1920s. So we are saying that this list of the STEM major or in science and engineering major list should not be correlated with the list of the STEM occupation by the US government. So we are using it as an instrument variable. We also use the matching. We match basically STEM occupation versus non-IT STEM occupations based on the education requirements, skill requirements. So that was one of the review comments. Should be there like majors or occupations that is like a STEM, but that is not STEM. Okay, so we are looking at the similar occupations between STEM and non-STEM, but one is STEM, one is non-STEM. And we also use generalized synthetic control model, which I'm going to show later. So these are the results with use of the instrument variable. We also use quotient exam matching that matches similar STEM and non-STEM occupations. And this is a new estimation approach that recently being used by many IS research. So the question that many ask is, so for STEM majors, STEM occupations, there is an OPT extension. But the question would be, what would have happened to the treatment group, the STEM occupation, had it not been treated? What would happen if there was no OPT extension? So we are asking, what is a counterfactual? Okay, so basically what the synthetic control method does is to create a hypothetical counterfactual based on the previous trends. So this is a STEM occupation, this is a non-STEM occupation, and we are creating basically hypothetical counterfactual that would have happened if there was no OPT treatment, OPT extension. And we are looking at the difference between the actual treatment trend and counterfactual trend. So that accounts for the selection issues, that accounts for endogenic concerns by assuming that without treatment, the treatment group would have followed a similar pattern to the control group, the non-STEM occupation. Okay, and these are the results of the generalized synthetic control method. We are seeing that there is increase in number of STEM workers and number of IT workers after the treatment. Okay, so any questions so far? Do we have any question? Any other question? Okay, so these are the works, and we've done many other lobotomy checks. In our last version, the appendix was longer than the main paper.
That's usual, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I'd be happy to show any of the our several dozen lobotomy checks. Yeah. So one of the mechanisms that we propose is this, that the STEM workers or IT workers are drivers for innovation and entrepreneurship. Okay, and to show that is the case, we look at the number of patents in each different industry and MSA. We look at the number of firms, number of establishments in different industries, and we're seeing that OPT extension has increased the number of patents, and more so in IT industry. It increased the number of firms, number of new firms in each industry, and more so in IT industry. So that supposed to be our story, that the increased supply of foreign workers because of STEM increase the facilitate innovation and entrepreneurship. So this is a kind of answer to Pankar's earlier question. So what happens to other occupations? So our story has been that the IT occupation, or the more IT workers, that could help the firms. Okay, that could increase they're going to increase the firm productivity. That could increase the overall occupation or overall employment level. So we look at the effect of STEM OPT extension on related occupation, related non-STEM occupation, like management analyst, training specialist, and market research analyst. And we're seeing the actually increase in non-STEM occupations too, which is interesting finding. So that also backs up our story that the basically OPT extension bring more foreign workers actually help firms, and that lead to more employment in different occupations too. And
we don't find much impact on wages, and that's interesting, right? Is that,
yeah, we don't see significant effect on wages. It increased the number of workers in these non-STEM occupation, but not the
which is itself interesting, because if you think about it, something like, let's say, Mechanical Turk or things, I'm talking you said market research, right? So maybe if you think about Mechanical Turk, they would probably need more market research analysts, or I mean, I don't know where they would fit in, but some sort of an industry is being developed by these IT occupation guys, which is enhancing market research analyst need, but not at higher wages.
No.
Which is interesting, right? So the wages increase is still in IT. The jobs are increasing, they're not paying as well. I don't know how strong that story can be told, but if that's a story, that is interesting. And it is something that everyone thinks about, that IT is dominating every field, they are taking over and all that. Maybe that's a way that it sort of manifests, that you are seeing a growth of IT. It is leading to more people working, but not at higher levels of wages. I don't know. This is interesting.
So thank you. Appreciate it. So, and as we discussed, as Pankaj and I discussed a minute ago, not all IT occupations are the same. There is a heterogeneity within IT occupations, within STEM occupations. So what we are looking at here is something Perry and Spada call the QI ratio, quantitative and interactive ratio. So each occupation requires different skills. Some occupation needs more quantitative skills. Some occupation needs more interactive skills for like a communication or negotiation. So computer programmers, for example, it doesn't need much of the interactive skills. They only do computer programming work, but there are more user support analysts, more architect, more managers. They need more interactive skill. They need more communication skills. So what you're looking at is different occupations need the different skills, and different foreign workers. So what literature found, and Pankaj, you should know this very well. Usually foreign STEM workers from countries like India or China, they have a stronger skill in more quantitative skills rather than interactive skill, right? So foreign workers bring more quant skills. What happens to the so is it gonna have more effect on the occupation that need more quant skills versus interactive skill? So here's what we found. We found actually that this is the marginal effect on domestic workers, the coefficient of the IT occupation. Okay, so what we found actually is that the OPT extension has a stronger effect that with a low QI ratio that requires less of the quant skills. So I understand it takes little time to understand. Okay, so what we're seeing is so when we are talking about the effect of the more immigration, we are looking at we have to look at the skill difference between domestic workers and foreign workers. So if domestic and foreign workers have a similar skills, that's more competition. But if domestic and foreign workers have a different skills, that can have more complementary effect. We know based on our personal experience and based on our research, we know that foreign workers bring more quant skills. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that actually help IT occupation and STEM occupation that needs a less quant skill. So what we're seeing is if STEM occupation or IT occupation that require more quant skills that foreign workers have advantage, domestic workers actually have a hard time in competing with foreign workers with the same occupation. But even within IT, within IT occupations, this bringing more foreign workers helps domestic workers that have different skills with the same occupation. So it's another interesting finding that we have. So we see a heterogeneous effect within occupation, within similar field, based on the skill differences.
Interesting.
Yeah, thank you. So, and we are also looking at the regional heterogeneity. So, Pankaj, are you familiar with the sanctuary jurisdictions?
Just a little bit. Do you wanna?
Okay, sure. Let me explain. So, US is a big country like India, and there are huge differences in different places and different cities, different states. There are more states or cities that are more open to immigration. There are cities or states that are less open to immigration. Pankaj, I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So one of the measures to see how open they are to immigration is whether each state has different sanctuary jurisdiction policies. Basically, sanctuary means by saying they are sanctuary jurisdiction, they are saying that it is a sanctuary to immigrants. They are protecting for deportation. So here's what we found. The effect of OPT extension has a stronger effect in more sanctuary jurisdictions that are open to immigration in terms of number of workers.
So this is the MSA level, Min-Seok?
Yeah, MSA level.
Okay.
So differences between basically San Francisco versus Dallas.
Okay.
We know that San Francisco is more open to immigration than Texas, right? So we want to see the difference. The idea is that let's say you got degree from Michigan State, okay? You want to get a job. Do you want to go to San Francisco or Dallas, right? And chances are, we are immigrants. I'm immigrant.
Yeah.
I would prefer to go to San Francisco rather than Dallas. San Francisco is more, open to immigrants like ourselves, and we want to see how these movements of the foreign workers makes a difference in terms of the effect on domestic workers. So what's interesting to see is that so it attracts more increased domestic workers in STEM, in sanctuary jurisdictions, but actually brings down the wages of domestic workers in non-IT STEM. So in sanctuary jurisdictions, like a place like California, it's going to bring more immigrants. It increased number of domestic workers in STEM and IT, but that actually brings down their wages. So what I'm looking at, what we are seeing is that from domestic workers' perspective, in sanctuary jurisdiction, it brings too many foreign workers to an extent that it actually brings down domestic workers, non-IT STEM domestic workers. So we are looking at, we are seeing that these are interesting nuances.
Well, it is a negative effect, right? Even at a smaller number, there is a negative effect, which means to some extent they are, the argument then, and I don't know, maybe it is, did you, for example, in this case, see, is this a population level effect? So, why would there?
That's next slide.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah. So we are also looking at the population size too, the effect of the modeling effect of population size. Yeah, so we are looking at similar. So that actually, the substitution effect happens more likely in the big cities, large metropolitan area. But what's interesting here is that we don't see this happen in IT occupation, the red lines. We're seeing only in non-IT STEM. So this also again shows the difference between STEM occupation, non-IT STEM occupation versus IT occupations. So which is encouraging.
Interesting. If we compare this with the previous one, can you go to the previous one? That's
sure.
The standard going down. Yeah. What I'm trying to see is that, so why is the sanctuary jurisdictions having a negative? Is it because, what is the key difference between the sanctuary and non-sanctuary that would explain? This is a change in directionality, right? So in one case it is increasing, in the other case it is decreasing. Why would
so I should have mentioned this. This is a proxy. So proxy for how many foreign workers migrating to in each different cities, each different metropolitan area. The problem we have here is, so you are foreign graduate, you are graduated from Michigan. We don't have a data on where they are going to after graduation. Are they staying in Michigan? They are going to Chicago? Are they going to New York? We don't have that. So we don't know how many of the F1 graduates go to different cities, different metropolitan areas. So this is kind of proxy with the idea that they are likely go to places where they are more open to immigration. Okay, and the idea is that they are more likely go to the more sanctuary jurisdictions. They are more likely go to bigger cities rather than small town in the U.S. Okay, so if that's the case, I mean, we don't have a detailed data to exactly if this is the case, but if the idea or our conjecture, I should say, is that these foreign graduates are actually going to more big cities, places like California or New York. That actually brings, like I said, they are moving to these cities too much, too many of them are moving to these big cities to an extent that that brings down the wages of the non-IT STEM workers. But we do not see that happens in IT occupations. Again, we don't have actual detailed data to see why exactly that happens, why IT goes up but non-IT STEM goes down. But the idea is that the IT occupations, IT workers can be employed in different industries. Non-IT STEM occupation can be employed in just a few occupations. So that's one of the explanations that we can have. And actually, there's some there's some results that we have on the fact that IT occupation can be employed in different industries. So there is actually a measure for that, which is called the skill transferability. To what extent specific skill can be transferred to different industries. So IT occupations is very high in terms of skill transferability, but there are other occupations in that have high skill transferability, like operations research analyst. Right. They can also can be employed in different industries, but there are other occupations like an aerospace engineer or a biochemist who doesn't have high level skill transferability. And what we find in this figure is that the effect of the OPT extension is stronger for occupations that have a high skill transferability, like a computer scientist or a computer system analyst or analyst. Okay, so that again backs up our idea, our mechanism that this is driven by the fact that IT occupation can be employed in different industries. So let me sum up. In summary, we see an increase in the number of domestic workers in STEM occupations, and the extension increased number and ways in IT occupations to a greater extent than in non-IT STEM occupations. We see that this effect is for IT occupation is stronger as sanctuary jurisdictions and large cities and IT occupations that require more interactive skills than in quantitative skills. So our contribution, we'll say, is that we actually found both complementary effect and substitution effects. The increased supply of high-skilled workers expands the employment of domestic workers. That effect is stronger for IT occupations. But we also see substitution effects too, which is something we discussed in a couple of minutes ago. In large cities, in sanctuary jurisdictions, OPT extension actually decreased the number and wage of domestic workers in non-IT STEMs. So we are not trying to be driven by ideology or the politics we have. We want to see what the evidence says, and we actually see both complementary and substitute effects. So that's all I have. So thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Great, this is excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Min-Seok. If anybody has any questions, you may ask now.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to step out in 5 minutes because
okay. Let's take very quickly if there is a question or two. I know it's very early for you, Min-Seok, and really appreciate. And
because we have MISQ special issue workshop in 15 minutes.
Oh yeah.
I emailed you.
I actually am teaching I'm teaching very shortly now. So I attended yesterday.
Okay, that's great.
I'm not able to do today because I'm doing this. I have to teach some executives across, actually from US and India, and a combined group of people I'm teaching today. So I'm sorry I'll not be able to make it for that one. But anybody has any questions? Min-Seok, actually a lot of people here are very young. We have a very young group of people. There are a lot of young assistant professors, and I think one person I saw, Indranil, I don't know if he's still there. Indranil Bose, you might know, he's on the JIS editorial board. I saw him here. I think he stepped out. But we have a lot of young, I think, people in the audience today, PhDs and research associates. So I'm sure this session was greatly helpful, especially for them. I enjoyed it. The faculty are excellent. It is very good that you could make time. I know it's when the session started, it was 5:30 a.m. It's still probably 6:30 at your place or
at least also I gave them, if there is somebody who wants to study in the US, I guess I gave them with immigration advice. I mean, they should know. We should know the process in the immigration process. We see it could be complicated.
Right. A lot of them are working here, and a couple of them have actually come from abroad as well. He's here. I think he had something he had to leave, but he graduated from University of Minnesota. He's an assistant professor here, and he was here as well. So I think, but we have a very young set of team here, and I'm sure they enjoyed the discussions and the slides. And I really thank you for taking the time.
Thanks so much.
Joining us. Good luck.
I'm going to be preparing for the workshop in.
No, I'll let you go. I don't want to hold you much, but thank you again on behalf of IIMA and CDT, and we look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.